Sometimes you want to read each and every element from the array and you want to execute some specific code for each element of the array. In that case, you can use the for each method. See, it is not like the previous methods like find, filter, etc. We are writing the condition and that condition will be checked for each and every element. But in this case, we are not going to write any condition and we will not return anything from the callback function. But instead, you will write any code inside this callback function. Simply, JavaScript executes this particular callback function for each and every element of the array. It reads all the elements of the array in a sequence in a top-to-bottom approach and executes the callback function once for each element. For example, there is an array with 4 elements and we are writing this callback function that prints the element itself. So for the first time, the element equal to the first value, that is 40. So console.log of 40. So you will get 40 as output. But for the next time, the same callback function executes for the second element, that is 175. So this time element equal to 175. So console.log of 175. So you will get the same as output. In this way, it reads all the elements of the array and executes the callback function once for each element. So when you want to do a bulk operation, that means you want to do the same process, that means same updates for each element. In that case, you will use this for each method. Let's take an example. Let's create a file that is foreach.js. And this is a custom code snippet in VS Code. And if needed, you have to add that custom snippet manually. If possible, I will show that later. So we have a set of products. For example, we have a property called quantity. And suppose the default value of the quantity is 0. So by default, for all the products, quantity equal to 0. But suppose I would like to add a method called increment, which increases the value of the quantity. Let's create a function first. That is increase quantity. And assume that this keyword refers to the current object. For example, we are representing the first object. So it has a property called quantity. And we are incrementing the same, that is quantity ++. And we have to add that method for each object. Here, the first increase quantity is the name of the method. And second time, you are writing the name of the function that was created above. Alright, so now for each product, we have a method called increase quantity. Suppose my requirement is that I don't want to check any condition, but unconditionally for all the products, I would like to increase the quantity. I would like to read each and every element from the array. Of course, we can do the same by using for loop also. For I equal to 0, I less than product's length. So this loop executes once for each element from the array. For the first time, I equal to 0, so products of I represents the first object. And in the same way, I value will be reached to length of the products by the loop. So each time we are trying to access the product by using products of I. For example, I equal to 0, so products of 0 will be the first object. Then we are calling the method called increase quantity. So we are reading each element from the array and invoking a method called increaseQuantity for each element. And after that, at last, I would like to print the complete status of the products array. So as you can see, we have the set of products where quantity is 1 that was incremented from 0 to 1. It's because we are calling this increaseQuantity method for each object. But this time we have done the same with for loop, right? The alternative for the for loop is for each method. We don't have directly for each loop in JavaScript, but for each method is the alternative for the same. So instead of writing this for loop, I am trying to write products dot for each, where E must be uppercase, and we have to create a function. That function must be executed for each element of the array. And you can either pass the function or arrow function. Of course, I am trying to use the arrow function here. Of course, you can use either of regular function or arrow function. So this particular arrow function will be executed once for each element. And every time, each element of the array will be received as a parameter here. For example, P. You can give any other name alternatively. So here the P variable represents the each element. For the first time, P assigns to the first object, but next time P equal to second object and so on. Here, the for each method is not the index based, but it is the sequence based. That means it starts from the very first element and reads all the elements in a sequence until it reaches to end of the array. So there is no loop here, there is no I value, that means there is no index. It starts from the first element, travels through all the elements, and reaches to end of the array. So for each object, we are trying to call the method called increaseQuantity. So let's check the output. Yes, we are getting the same output as it before, but this time instead of using for loop, alternatively we are trying to use the for each method. Notice the features. What are we doing here? Here we are not checking any condition and we are not returning anything from this arrow function. So we can do anything here, such as printing the value of the products. For example, you can use the console.log statement inside that callback function, or you can invoke any method of the object. You can also do anything whatever you wish inside that callback function. So when you want to execute a specific task commonly for all the objects, then you can use this for each method. But rather, you want to check a condition and you want to check that condition for each and every element and find out the matching elements. For this case, you can use the filter method. This is all about for each method in JavaScript arrays.